Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Deep Depth episode 11, here where we dive into the deep end of life here on Deep Depth Productions. Today's guest is a very special guest. Coming onto the show today, it is a fat loss diet coach. He'll help your body transform, knows a lot about the gym and the fitness lifestyle. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Shawn Rivers. Shawn, welcome to Deep Depth, here where we dive into the deep end of life. How are you doing today, sir?
So far, so good. Thanks for having me. Really
Of
appreciate it.
course, man. Of course, man. We're here to talk about something very important in today's time with fitness. It's very important that we dissect it and we have to give the best of information to the audience today that is watching, for those that struggle with knowing what diet to go for, how to start off in the gym. Because we were both in that place at one point when we entered the gym, like, holy shit, where do I start with whatever machine? How do I start off my diet? So let's just get right into it. So what was your key motivation origin story for you to become a fitness influencer per se, and someone with knowledge when it comes to gym and dieting? So where did it all start, and what brought that like sparking you to be like, I need to do this?
Hmm. So I think for everyone, like when you're starting in the gym, things like this, like everyone has some type of story. So where mine began was I was in high school and I was very stereotypical overweight kid, funny, things of that nature. And so what happened was we had a kid that I was playing football at the time, and my junior year, we had a kid that transferred to our school, and he was jacked and he was just in such good shape. And so
Right.
he ended up taking me under my wing. Um, and we started working out together over the summer. I ended up dropping 30 pounds in one summer. Just
Oh
from
wow.
working out, changing the diet a little bit. But I mean, when you're a kid, like a 16-year-old dude, like it's pretty easy to drop weight if you went from not working out at all to started working out. So that's where all of that started to transpire, is when I first got into the gym, that junior year of high school. I actually made a ton of changes. I went from like 200 pounds to 170 during that summer.
That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah,
Congrats on that. Yeah.
appreciate it. So that's really where it sparked. And then yeah, from there I ended up going to college, and I thought it was going to be for accounting just because I had done well my senior year in accounting, and I was like, yeah, I'll do this. I'll make some money. And it's so boring. I hated it. So transferred out and went and got my degree in exercise science, and now here we are.
That is a beautiful story. And I think everyone started off at that point. And it's good that you mentioned that when we were younger, that it's sort of easier to kind of like reach our fitness goals. Because when you're young. You have this crazy amounts of energy to just go out and do stuff. Whether it's biking, play outdoor sports. For me, whenever I play basketball or soccer, if someone like texts me like, "Hey, do you want to play somewhere indoor?" I'm like, "No. If it's 8 degrees outside, let's go outside." Like, what is wrong with you guys? Like, yeah, air conditioner is nice and all. You got a big ass fan in the ceiling, but
Mhm.
let's enjoy the sun. Let's get that vitamin C in. Like my dad says the best. Him being from Europe. He's like, you have to get your vitamin C, and like you just look at the sun. So that's a beautiful story to hear, because a lot of us, had like different journeys. Some of us struggled with weight. Some of us, had, a great head start with weight. So it's good that that was your origin story. And I'm sure that would be very inspiring to the audience. So I'm glad you shared that out. And another thing I was gonna bring up is, why is it that nowadays we're starting to see like this little trend where like people young, I would say like from the age of 15 to 18 or even early 20, why are we seeing more of like this indoor habit? Like people just want to stay inside more, people want to be more comfortable more. Would you say it's like the American culture around us that kind of like fuels that, or do you think it's more of a self thing? Like what are your thoughts on that?
Hmm. So whenever you're discussing topics like this, first off, of course, it's just like my perspective, right? It's not that I'm right or wrong, it's just how I see the world.
Absolutely.
Just like when people will listen to this podcast, it's not that anything we're saying is perhaps right or wrong, it's just how they're going to perceive it. So when I look at this, I think that part of it is that how fast technology is changing, and now how our dopamine systems are starting to work, we're not utilizing our dopamine for us. We're just going and getting that quick hit, getting that quick hit, getting that quick hit. And so with technology, like if I was growing up and I was for like 10, 11, 12, and I immediately just had a iPad put in front of me, I may be more prone to go and utilize that iPad or watch TV um, as I'm growing up instead of how I did grow up when I was going outside, just hanging around with the neighborhood kids, all of this type of stuff. So I think just from an early age, with how much technology we have, and personally, I'm not a parent, so I don't want to tell like, hey, you're doing this wrong, XYZ. But at least from my perspective, just putting an iPad in front of your kid isn't the way that's going to help progress them the quote unquote right ways. So finding different ways to get them outside and like just like you were saying, vitamin D is one of the biggest, most important pieces to just our physiological benefits that we need. Like
Absolutely.
if you're not getting outside, like your circadian rhythm is going to be all messed up, your sleep is going to be all messed up. There's a lot of factors that go into just getting sunlight, whether it's in the beginning of the day, whether it's just at any time. Like we need sunlight to live.
That's why, like, sometimes I just throw in a little joke. Like, if I'm ever playing like Call of Duty with someone online and I'm playing like some sort of try hard, like, man, take your blinds open. You've probably been in your room all day. Like, I mean, that's like
Yep.
a little joke, but in some ways, there is like a little bit of scary truth to that. Like you said,
Hmm.
like, and I'm gonna have like this on like my previous episode with my guy, Mr. Key, and before that, Bradley, where for us, it's like we don't want to ever question parents. Like, that's not like we're not parents, we can't like it's not our say to how parents should parent their kids. However, from how you said your perspective, which I'm glad you broke that down because it's good to explain that there's our perspective, there's our opinion, this is our viewpoint of how we see the culture. So I do agree that parents nowadays bring the iPads way too early for their kids, bring like iPhones, like when I was growing up, like I was born in 2001. For
Hmm.
me, I didn't get my first phone. First of all, my first phone I shared with my brother, like around
Hmm.
the age of 15 or 16. I didn't get my first phone until I was like 17, 18 years old. That's when I finally got my first phone. And my dad was like, hey, if you need to call, if you need to, like just simple stuff. So I'm glad that early on it wasn't like shoved to my face. And how you said attention span is very scary nowadays. Like, I
Hmm.
remember I talked to Bradley where it was like, there's a reason why we see on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, where you'll have a cutout of a GTA gameplay beneath of a podcast clip, and then you'll have like these bold like captions. It's because nowadays people need to focus on more one thing to keep themselves entertained when they watch like a certain clip. And I think that's very concerning to see where our attention span is going to go, where technology is going to go. So I'm really glad you brought that up, and we're gonna tackle right back into it a little bit later. But the next question I want to ask is, what are some common myths and misconceptions would you say they are about dieting and specifically weight loss diets? Like
Hmm.
what some people misconceive about? Because I feel like sometimes people view weight loss diet as a thing where it's like, oh, I can't eat anything I can enjoy,
Hmm.
I can't drink anything I can enjoy. Like so what are the common misconceptions and myths you would say there is about fat loss diets? Because I've been through a fat loss diet
Yep.
before, and I don't want to like boost my shoulders up, but I
Hmm.
would say that it wasn't the most difficult for me. So how would you break it down for us?
Yeah, no, and that's good for you. I think like when you're looking at the dieting camps, first off, it depends who you're talking to because I've had many conversations with people that are much older than me in like that 40s to 50 crowd where all of a sudden misconceptions there are so much different than misconceptions that are for someone like in our 20s like ourselves.
Right.
So the most common things that I come across would have to be like skipping breakfast, like doing the whole intermittent fasting thing. Everything for fat loss really comes down to energy expenditure and energy in, which is food, and energy out, which is how much you're moving, things of that nature, right? Uh, Eat less, move more, in a sense. So, like when it comes down to misconceptions, things like, okay, I just need to skip breakfast and that'll make it so that I lose weight. Or, um, okay, I drank like Gatorade and that's what I had for my water. Like,
Right.
no, Gatorade is not water. Or that you need to cut out carbs. Like this is like to me, these may seem like, oh my God, like these are basic things that I know I don't need to do. But depending on who you're talking to, I think those main three things are like base level knowledge that everyone should know that we're not exactly taught. Like having a well-rounded diet is can look different for everyone. My diet is going to look much different for from you, and your diet is going to look much different from me. But your
Absolutely.
body needs a lot different foods, macronutrient, micronutrients than I do, and I need a completely different diet for myself to one, make sure it's sustainable, enjoyable, and it's actually helping me reach my goals, and the same for you. So I'd say those three are the biggest misconceptions. And so those are three things that I'm like, I wouldn't even say passionate about, but whenever someone brings them up, you just try not to get upset and you try to just help them accept their viewpoint of the world and then see if you can help them change it.
Absolutely. I'm glad you broke it down that way. And I think another thing, like how you said, like with Gatorade and stuff like that, skipping breakfast. I've had a few friends like I would just skip breakfast and oh, I'm gonna lose a few pounds. I'm like, dude, you don't have to skip breakfast. Just eat something like. And this is what also I was gonna get to portion size. Like, watch your
Hmm.
portion. Like, you don't like you can still enjoy breakfast, like, but don't have a bowl of cereal, then eggs, and then toast. Like relax, like just
Hmm.
have something that'll like keep you keyword satiated. Something that will keep you full. Something that will keep you like long term. Like and food alternatives. That's another thing I was gonna ask you. Where
Hmm.
for me, as like I was getting more into the gym, I would say for me, I was always like more of like a gym rat in the sense where I would play sports, not necessarily a gym rat where I was like lifting weights heavy but I was like very cardio like heavy, like playing soccer, basketball, football growing up. So doing those sort of like cardio activity, I kind of had like that fundamental aspect of like what the gym is like and how you have to be fit. And as I was getting more into the gym, I had to realize, okay, there are certain things I'm gonna have to cut out, but if I'm struggling with it, all there are alternatives. And I remember like one of the few things I struggled with back in the day were potato chips,
Hmm.
which is very hard for a lot of people to cut out. But what I realized is, okay, these have no sort of nutrients. They don't keep me satiated. What keeps me like full more so than a bag of chips? So I got into, frozen blueberries with Greek yogurt. You know, another thing that really surprised me, I'll never forget, like one of my personal trainers, told me, hey, you want to know a fun fact? I'm like, what's up? He's like, it's not necessarily healthy, but it's way healthier than chips. You ready for it? I'm like, what's up? Popcorn. I'm like, man, get out of
Hmm.
here. Like popcorn. And then at that time, I'm just like, there's no way, because I view popcorn as like the movie theater thing or whatever. But then he broke it down. He's like, oh, way less calories, more fiber, keeps you more satiated. So then literally that very next day, went to Costco, got like a big box of skinny pop, it's already pre-portioned. The
Yep.
macros are good. And I'm like, oh my God, like I could do this. And then like I also got into almonds and cashews, something that'll keep you like more energized. So talk to me about food alternatives and how easy that can be for people to
Mm.
understand.
All right. So there's a couple of things that I want to break down here. When you look at staying satiated, first off, the more protein that you're going to consume, the more satiated that you're going to be able to stay. So if I gave you like a big slab of chicken every single meal versus ice cream for every single meal,
Right.
even if I portion them out to the same amount of calories for each of them, you're going to stay so much more full from that chicken than you are from the ice cream. So, of course, there's a point to some diminishing returns. If you were eating 400 grams of protein, it may not be the best for you.
Absolutely.
But if you're going and you're prioritizing protein around every single meal, then that's going to help keep you much more full than it would from just having those carbohydrates and those fats. So I like that, like popcorn. Popcorn's one of the great ones, right? But in terms of food, um, like just swaps, that's more or less the question, right? Is
Yeah,
alternatives. So when we're looking at this, like I want to go, let me backtrack just for a second too. Like
no problem.
the potato chips for popcorn, right? It's just an easy-ish swap. Potato chips aren't necessarily inherently bad per se, but it's just the overconsumption of the potato chips. If you actually read the label and you weighed out, it's probably like 28 grams is the serving size. It probably comes
Hmm.
out to like 15 chips, which in reality is like two handfuls out of the bag. And so if you're sitting there in front of the TV or playing video games or whatever, and you're just mindlessly eating those, you're probably over consuming. You could easily have 1,000 calories right there.
Just
Like
like
I
that.
had I had Cheez-Its yesterday and I weighed them out into a little bowl and not a big bowl, but there was like a very small amount left in the package. I
Right.
poured the rest in and I looked and it was like 600 calories for like a very like probably about the size of my hand. It's
Man.
we often just don't realize how much we're actually eating. So that's the issue. If you just started to weigh things out, like if you do that for a week, you will learn so much more than just trying to quote unquote eat healthy, right? And so actually seeing the number of calories that you're eating. In terms of food swaps, all right, the biggest thing, of course, is just making sure that you want to eat less calories total. So, of course, you can go and make all of these simple food swaps, but I think a lot of us just don't eat like an adult per se. We eat more like an unsupervised child at a birthday party. All
Yeah.
right. We just eat whatever we want because we're an adult and we can do whatever we want.
That's very true. Yes.
And we want to think that we need to make all this food like fun and that it needs to taste good every single time. And even just like switching some of your sauces or switching some of your condiments or spices, if you go and have like a lean protein, some rice or potatoes, some vegetables, some fruit, if you do that for each meal, which is more like eating like an adult, and you just switch the condiments or the spices, things like that, you can make meals that are really, really flavorful and good. All right. And the more that you start to eat that and the less that you start to eat that quote unquote junk food, the more your palate will start to actually enjoy those foods instead of the other foods. So just some basic swaps though. Um, anytime that you can get like a sugar-free sauce, do that. Like
Oh
a
yeah.
sugar-free ketchup or a sugar-free barbecue sauce, or a sugar-free syrup. Like I had French toast this morning, and instead of just having a regular syrup, I use a sugar-free syrup, and it's 10 calories instead of 100, right? And if you do that every single day over the course of a week, you're looking at a good 700 calories that you just saved, right? So, I love doing things like popcorn, like you said, sugar-free Jello. You can eat tons and tons of sugar-free Jello for very minimal
I
calories.
gotta try those. I have to
Um,
try those. I
yeah,
gotta try those.
things like whipped cream, like, and I'm just giving like basic, just like hacks in a sense, because I think that they'll be able to help the audience, right? So something like whipped cream, if you have that like sweet tooth where you crave something sweet after you eat a big meal, if you just put a little bit of whipped cream on a spoon, that's like 10 or 15 calories, and then just eat it, and that can suffice enough. Um, Also, you can do things like a sweet potato with some almond butter and some cinnamon. That's really good to help us a sweet tooth. You can do just like you were saying, very similarly, like some non-fat Greek yogurt. Put a little bit of like the cacao in it, or you can even do like the sugar-free like pudding packets and mix it in. Add a little bit of like some strawberries or something, and it's really, really good. So I personally don't like that's not always the first thing I go to is just okay, how can I start to swap some of these things? It's more of how can I start to actually have meals that are structured around protein and have more of a well-balanced diet. And then I can see, okay, Now instead of the potato chip, now I can go and make this swap. Now I can go and make this swap. It's more about how can I start to actually structure some real meals instead of just going and switching things out first.
Beautifully well broken down. I agree with like every single point, basically every single point. I agree with you. That was beautifully well broken down. Thank you for breaking down in that way. And that's very important to spread because I would say a lot of the diets because I would say fat loss diet, just from my opinion and viewpoint, I think people struggle with fat loss diet the most compared to most other diets because they're not used to like dropping certain foods, being more disciplined. And how you said, like, you can still enjoy food, just add a little bit of a twist to it. For me, when it
Mhm.
comes to sauces, like how you mentioned, like I had this brand in my refrigerator right now. I think it was like Ray's barbecue, where it's like sugar free, it's like 10, 15 calories.
Mhm.
I'm a big hot sauce person because whopping zero all the
Yep.
time. So I love hot sauce. That's like my go-to. Um, Ketchup is a little scary, but you can find sugar-free, organic-based ketchups. You just have to look closely in the grocery store nowadays because they're hidden because they like to, marketize those the Heinz ketchup full of like sugar
Mhm.
and added ingredients, which we'll get into in just a bit. But I think the scary thing is us not reading the food labels,
Mhm.
which that will kind of proceed on into the next subject, similarly. But I think with the food labels, for me, like growing up as a kid, like I would just go like let's say to the bread aisle, and I
Mhm.
would go and get Wonder Bread for the
Mhm.
upcoming field trip, make a turkey sandwich, and then I didn't realize at the time because you're a kid, you're just consuming whatever, and then as you get older I remember watching this one YouTube short. Oh, is Wonder Bread supposed to have 30 plus ingredients? I'm like, damn, that bread has 30 plus ingredients. That doesn't add up. So you go to back to the grocery aisle, you read it yourself. It's like bread should be just flour, eggs, you know, whatever else, but not
Mhm.
like all these other like ingredients I've never heard of in my life. And it's just crazy. And like how you said with the chips and the Cheez-Its, like that blew my mind because I enjoy myself some Cheez-Its every once in a blue moon. You can't go wrong with Cheez-Its, but
Mhm.
you just have to be careful because it's like when you weigh it out, when you put it into perspective and like you look at it closely, it's like, oof, like maybe I shouldn't have this right now. Maybe I should say this for a later point in time. And it is really scary. I'm glad you really mentioned the food labels because food labels, it's important for us to read it. The ingredients, how many calories, the servings, like even with maple syrup, like I told
Mhm.
people, just go get organic maple syrup with like 5 to 10 calories. Don't get the Aunt Jemimas of the world
Mhm.
because like that has a shit ton of sugar, that has
Mhm.
so many unnecessary ingredients. And there's this saying, I hope I get it right. When you eat good, you'll feel good. And I
Mhm.
think nowadays, like us in the United States and even globally, like we have to understand like when we eat like better foods, we're gonna wake up with less headaches, we're gonna feel better, we're gonna feel less tired at work. And I just want to get your little quick thought on that before we proceed to the next question.
Mhm. Overall, when you start to have this conversation of is it food quality or is it food quantity, right? And there's those two camps. And really, it's this double-edged sword of it's both. It just is.
Right.
So if you were going to go and eat organic this, and organic that, and you go to the grocery store and you've got like organic kale chips, for example, right? You can still overconsume on just organic kale chips. All right. Now, if you were going to go and just eat meat, fruit, and vegetables, there's you're most likely not going to gain much weight at all, like in terms of body fat. All right. Because they're very, very basic. They're all one ingredient in a sense. Okay. Um, and so you could go and consume as much as you want of just meat, fruit, and vegetables and really just be jacked and lean. All right.
Absolutely.
But and that's where that food quality comes in. But for the majority of people and how we live today, that's not sustainable. That's not what people are going to do. People want to go out to eat. People want to go out and they want to drink and they want to go and have uh, a date night or order a pizza and things like this. So there just needs to be this conversation of how do we have the best of both worlds, but at the same time, when do we need to make certain sacrifices um, for what we want to do, but also for our goals.
I agree. I totally agree. And that will sort of kind of transition to the next question. What I want to ask deeply is with modern day standards of America, when it comes to what we eat and drink, how would you help a beginner that's getting to the gym and struggling to find what diet is best for them? Because I was at that shoe at one point. And I
Mhm.
remember like not too long ago, I was more on I just did it to just to try it for fun. I remember I was on this little 2 to 3 week carnivore diet where I was just eating strictly meats, and I did feel good. There are some pros for sure, but there are also a little bit of cons. You know, you do need a little bit of greens. You do need
Mhm.
a bit more fruit. But was I full throughout the day? Oh my goodness, yes I was. But um, how would you help a beginner that's getting into the gym and struggling to find what diet is best for them? But also nowadays, we've seen this competition. I use the word competition because that's how I view it, of different Instagram influencers. For example, they'll say if fitness Instagram influencer A will say, "Hey, whey protein products or protein bars are all chemical concoctions that are not good for you." Then you
Mhm.
have fitness influencer B, like, "Hey, whey protein is good bioavailable protein. It's good for you to consume. Protein bars are nice. You just have to track the macros." And then people struggle. Okay, do I go for influencer A or do I go for fitness influencer B? Because then they
Mhm.
get kind of confused. And the way I see it is in the fitness industry, specifically with influencer, with guys like you, I feel like everyone is preaching some sort of truth,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. I feel like everyone is right, but there are some people that are also wrong. I don't think there's anyone that's like completely wrong unless they have their science and research wrong. So, how would you tackle that question? And a lot of people do struggle with that, with what diet's best for them and who
Mhm.
to exactly listen to. So, how would you
Yep.
give your advice out to those people?
So first off, let's look at just influencer A versus influencer B. For social media, from my view, in order to be successful in a sense right now, and what is success? It's different for everyone, right? For some people, it may be just getting a ton of views and having a ton of followers, but for other people, it's how do I get these people into my sales funnel, into my program, all of these types of things. So, a lot of what social media is, in order to stand out, you must be polarizing. If I just said you can do whatever diet just works for you, like it's not very attention grabbing versus, okay, you need to make sure that you never eat these three foods. Like that entices you, and you're going to want to watch it. You're going to want to click on it. Oh my God, like, am I eating these three foods? Versus, hey, this is what will help you create a well-balanced diet. The first one is just going to help get you clicks. The second one, it may be more of a truth, but it's not going to help get you views. So there's that in between of okay, how polarizing should I be? And how much truth should I give? For me, like I want to give as much truth as possible, but at the same time, I do want to be polarizing and have my own thoughts and beliefs and views of the world. So when you're looking at influencer A versus influencer B, I think I would agree with you where both of them may be right to a degree. It's just how can you go and form your own thoughts and beliefs based on what each of them are saying? So when you're looking at a beginner, when we're looking at a beginner, are we looking at like a teenage kid or someone that's more like in their adult life?
I would say let's just start with teenage kid first. Let's do teenage kid first. Like they're getting into the gym, they want to, get big, get lean. So let's start with the teenage kid and then let's get to the adult. So we can start with teenage first.
Sure. So I think it's important when you're just a teenage kid, all you have to do is really just start seeing what you eat. So this is where they'll coincide whether you're a teenage kid or an adult. All I ever start someone to do is just track their food in a food journal. Just write it out. I'm not saying to go and track your calories, things like this, but just write it out so that it's not just in your head and you actually see what you're eating. Okay, I had 5 handfuls of Cheez-Its. Okay, I wrote that down. And then I had 3 cookies later and I had XYZ. So when you're a kid that's just starting, like whether you're overweight or underweight, whatever goals you may have, the biggest thing is always going to come down to just protein. Okay. Now, don't take it as the end all be all, but just learning and understanding how can I start to have more structured meals that are built around protein and less of just snacking. So once you can start to do that, okay, you know what? I did really good. I had one structured meal today and everything else was just snacks here and there. All right,
Right.
well, next week, can I go and have two structured meals? And instead of having snacks 5 times, can I go and have snacks 4 times? And then you can start to increase and decrease. How many meals did I have? How many snacks did I have? Things like that. And that, because especially when you're that young, I just want someone to be able to have a healthy relationship around food as well. I don't want to go and say, hey, go and put every single thing that you eat into MyFitnessPal. Like, sure, it could work, but at that young of an age, um, you're just a little bit more prone to building like a negative relationship with food if you're really, really too overly structured and too dialed in. Just from my experience with kids that I've worked with. So just learning on how to actually eat more structured meals and less snacks is, I think, a great starting point. In terms of the gym, just go and try everything. So if you want to go and do cardio, go and do that and see how you like it, how your body feels. Go and start to strength train. Go and see how your body feels. Do you like it? Do you enjoy it at all? Are you skipping these things just because you feel tired, or does your body actually like ache? Are there pains? Do you just want to go and play sports? And the more things that you can try, especially when you're younger, you'll be able to go and see which you're going to gravitate towards and which you actually going to enjoy and be able to build a sustainable lifestyle
Right on the
around.
money. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing, especially just when you're um, a younger kid, is how to start to structure meals around protein. Okay, um, I ate an entire bag of potato chips today. How can I eat half a bag next week instead? Things like that.
Agreed. That was beautifully well breaking down because for me, I struggled at first, but with me playing sports and all that, it was kind of quicker for me to catch on with what I had to do. So I'm glad you broke it down that way. And it's very important that we all understand that everyone has their like truth to it. Like you should kind of listen to everyone. Like everyone has a nice little insight when it comes to gym, what we should consume, what we should eat. And a key word like that I love you saying is protein, protein. Like make sure you get your protein in, make sure you're full, make sure you're satiated, make sure you're energized for the gym. Make sure afterwards you have a nice little post-workout meal. Because the most important thing is recovery. I
Mhm.
realize that the most because sometimes I'll go in the beginning, I was just going a little too crazy. And then afterwards, I'm way too sore. And then I would kind of force myself way back into the gym. And then, like, I'm sore for another few days, even longer. And it's even worse. Recover you too, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you recover. Make sure you ice. Make sure you have a good post-workout meal. So if there is a Chipotle or a nice place near your gym, go for a nice burrito bowl. Make sure you have some good stuff in there. Now, let's say we go to an adult, because I actually do have some
Mhm.
a statistic here. I was actually going to share out. Basically, it is the top 10 most physically active countries in the world. I don't know if you could see that.
Mhm.
Um, so right now, fun fact, America is not in the top 10. It is not in the top 10. So 10 is Turkey. Right here,
Mhm.
average weekly exercise, 5.8 hours.
Mhm.
Number 9, we have Hungary. Average weekly exercise hours, 8.8. Prevalence of physical inactivity among adults is 38%. Then we have Spain. Then we have India. Then we have Sweden, Romania, Canada, China, Netherlands, and then number 1, Russia. And then we try to go towards obesity in the United States of America. Nearly 40% of Americans, adults age 20 and over, are obese, and then 71.6% of adults age 20 and over are overweight, including obesity. So when we look at those statistics we just had, how would you say, because for me, with the resource that we have, all these commercial gyms, whether it's an Export, a Planet Fitness, or wherever gym you go to, doesn't matter, But all these resources that we have, in the United States and some of these outdoor parks that we have, why is it that we struggle? And for me, like I don't want to sound like some sort of patriot or anything. I'm
Hmm.
thinking we should be in the top 10 because we have all these resources. We have beautiful parks, beautiful gyms in America. Now, I've been to gyms outside of Chicago. I've been to a gym in Indiana. I've been to a gym in Michigan. They have some beautiful gyms out there. And I've seen like videos of gyms in Florida. I've seen videos of gyms in California. Beautiful gyms, beautiful parks, but yet we don't put ourselves out there enough. So why is that? And for an adult, like how we were talking a little about earlier, how urgent it is, especially at a certain age point, that they need to get active. Because I think about like, my grandparents, I think about my parents, and I'm glad they're active now. They go on daily walks, they go on
Hmm.
daily jogs, because that's important. I want them to be healthy. I want them to have a nice long life because as they get older, they're physically not going to be as sharp as they used to be. They're just not. Naturally, they're not. So how important it is for us adults to just put themselves out there and just stay consistently active.
This is a great talking point. I'm glad you brought this up. In terms of obesity, it's a real issue for the US population right now. And I think part of it is that a lot of us just aren't taking it seriously. So I'm gonna uh put this into two categories of one, if I was going to blame someone, okay? If I was going to blame someone, you can look at our healthcare system, our food system, all of these aspects. They're not exactly working for us, right? We've got it's less fruits and vegetables and meats and all of these things. And what do you see on every single commercial or what do you see on the end caps of like when you go into a grocery store? It's all of those like fun foods, like whatever desserts and ring dings and whatever you enjoy, right? Yodels.
Right.
I don't care.
Yeah.
So that's if you were going to go and blame someone. But at the same time, there's the category of we're not taking enough ownership right now. And people need to take ownership for their health and for how they feel, how they show up in the world. And we really just need to raise a standard because I think what happens is that people get complacent where they are. They think that their life just isn't that bad. And their life being not that bad is, well, could my wife have sex with me more? Yeah, sure. Could I eat better? Yeah, sure. Could I be a little bit more active? Yeah, sure. But you know what? On
Right.
the weekends,
Right. Right.
I get to go out and hang out with my buddies and go drink. So who cares? And then I go to my job on Monday that I hate, and it's not that bad because I pay all my bills. So I think just looking at your life and raising the standard of what you actually want. And I could just take this so many different ways because this is so, so important
It really is.
taking
Yeah.
taking ownership of where you are and then actually writing out a destination of like who you want to be. And if you can do those two things, you'll actually be able to go and look at your life and be like, "Oh my God, this is not like the highest standard that I should have for myself. I need to go and do something about this." The caveat to this is that our brain is meant to keep us safe. Okay. So when you're going and laying on the couch for 4 hours or 3 hours every single night just watching Netflix, that your brain has made it so that that feels safe. You're not being attacked by a lion or something, right? And so you being comfortable is your brain saying this is good. And the more that you continue to do this, the easier it is to fall into those patterns and make them just habits. So the more that you can get uncomfortable and the more that you can start to do hard things, the more that you will teach your brain, no, I'm in control. All right. And there's a whole neuroscience component to it. I don't know all the ins and outs of it. Okay. But I do know that doing hard things and delaying some gratification will make it so that you can start to raise the standard of who you are and who you want to be, and us as a whole, as a country, can start to change.
Absolutely.
I
I
hope
agree.
that, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything. No, no, I totally agree with everything because I think we have like this thing where we don't take enough ownership. I'm glad you brought that up
Mhm.
because yes, there are things as a country we're very critical of. Like for example, like how fast food places are every half a square mile apart from each other. We could talk about um how they, how you said the end caps of a grocery store with chips and cereal and stuff, and even what's even more sad is you'll have big time professional athletes. Now I get it. Go get your money's worth. It's an endorsement deal. I'm not knocking that. I see why they would do it. However, when you put it into perspective, for example, um, big NBA stars like Jason Tatum, LeBron James, they'll be on a big bag of Ruffles. And you as a kid that's playing basketball and stuff like that, after a basketball session, you'll be like, oh wow, they're on the bag of chips, maybe it's healthy because what
Mm-hmm.
people don't realize is when you're a young age, you're very gullible. So when you
Mm-hmm.
see like big pro stars on like these chips or cereals, like you'll think, oh my God, like this is going to be good for me. When in reality, it's not. It's more of a cash grab. Again, it's not necessarily a knock towards those professional athletes, but it's
Mm-hmm.
more so just shows you how dangerous marketing could be. But I'm really glad you brought up ownership because it's important that we have to own up and say, hey, you know what? I'm not doing enough. I'm not being disciplined enough to cut out some of these bad habits, to cut out some of these bad foods I'm eating. Let me get right. Let me get healthier. And I hope really soon we as a country can overturn it because we have so much potential. Like when I go to Europe, like I've been to my home country in Bosnia, and I've been
Mm-hmm.
to Canada, like I'll see like it is not to like and I'll like body shaming anyone. I don't like doing that. But you'll see like more people naturally fit. You'll see more people like just looking healthier, just feeling better. And I spoke to some locals out there and they're like, yeah, we just don't have enough fast foods in this certain town here. Like we're just more of home cooked foods. Especially where
Mm-hmm.
I'm from in Bosnia, like you'll barely see any fast food. It's more of like sit down restaurants, grilling the meats on the grill. They'll probably fry certain foods, two or three. Like that's the culture that we should be striving for, but at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
it's just realistically not going to happen. However, what can happen is, hey, I need to change, and change is uncomfortable. But that's the thing, like it's okay to become uncomfortable at first. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you go on a first date, you're going to be uncomfortable. When you start driving, you're going to be uncomfortable. When you start at a new job that's a big time job opportunity, you're going to be uncomfortable. That's the whole point. You have to start off being uncomfortable to get comfortable. That is the whole point. And I'm glad you brought that up because you really do have to bring some stuff like that up. And we just have to take ownership. We really, really
Mm-hmm.
have to, and it's super important. Now, to wrap things up in just a bit, there are a few more questions I definitely want to tackle into before we end today's episode. Now, for you, describe the gym when you went for the first time and talk me through how you were feeling mentally before beginning your journey. So, some of these people that haven't hit the gym yet, for let's say, they're afraid of what some people are going to think about them, like if they're doing a certain exercise wrong or something. And I was one of those too. Like, I remember, like, I think I was doing like, what I was doing. I think I was doing like a chest press machine. I was doing chest press and I thought my form was off. So I'm constantly looking to my left and right, like, oh my God, like is that person looking at me? Like
Mm-hmm.
do I look dumb?
Yep.
But I remember what Bradley said, and a shout out to him. Like I remember what he said. He was like, some of those people or most of those people were in a same exact position that you were. So maybe most likely they're not saying, "Oh, look at this guy." They'll probably like, you know what? Good for them.
Mm-hmm.
Good for them. They're in the gym like here, like me. And the more I thought about that, the more I got to a gym, because I always had this scary like image of like, oh my God, what someone comes up to me and just like bullies me or whatever. But no, like the gym community is a very nice community. Now, yes, there are going to be certain characters that are going to be, with high egos and stuff like that. But that's not as often as some people think. Like, it's very rare you come across those people. I've come
Mm-hmm.
across some very sweet people when I come to the gym. Like, I remember one time, like, my form was a little bit off when it came to benching. This older gentleman, I think he was like in his early 40s, came over, was like, hey, young fella, like, let me show you a little bit of something better. And it's important that us as a gym community, like we think of more like the positive, not so the negative. So walk me through your
Mm-hmm.
first time going to the gym and help people, those that like have like this fear of the gym, like, oh my God, I think of this, think of
Mm-hmm.
that of me. How would you tackle that?
Yep. So first off, for me, I actually was a little bit more unorthodox because I actually didn't have those initial thoughts of like everyone's looking at me. When I first started, it was in high school and we had the football team that would train together. So it was very community aspect already. And of course, like you have all like it's a bunch of guys, rah rah, whatever. And it's more like it was more uplifting for me as opposed to, oh my God, does everyone think that I'm just like some big, weird weakling or whatever, right? And
Absolutely, yeah.
so it actually didn't start that way for me. But of course, you'll have those thoughts throughout your time going to the gym and everything. And so when I have someone that is that's coming to me, working with me, having those similar thoughts of everyone staring at me, all of these things, the same thoughts that you're having are the same thoughts that everyone else is having as well. It's like when you were in middle school and you were really uh, self-conscious because you had a big pimple on your forehead, where in reality, no one cares because everyone only cares about the pimple that's on their forehead. No one actually cares about what you're doing in the gym. All right. Everyone just cares more about themselves and their lift. And the same thoughts that you're having is the same thoughts that everyone else are having. And we're really no different. All right. And so, me working out and you working out over there, we're probably having the same self-conscious thoughts. And neither of us actually really know what we're doing to a degree. And so, when you can put it into just a better perspective like that, I think that little switch is what helps people get over that fear of am I doing this right? Or, uh, oh, am I going to look stupid? Like, mm, no.
I agree. No, that beautifully well said because the thing is like how you said like everyone's already focused on their own little workout. So someone's already doing their arm day or back and chest or however people work out. They're already focused on their own little thing. So they don't really have time to just look at you and look at others to like nitpick or whatever or poke fun. And that's another thing like I sort of mentioned is like don't overthink it, just go into the gym. You'll definitely come across some good characters. And I recommend to some people like, hey, if you feel like you need to go for a personal trainer at that commercial gym at the front desk, like maybe ask for some assistance, maybe ask for some
Mhm.
guidance, look at content like people, I would say look at your content or look at other fitness influencers' content because it's important that you also know what we're doing. Now, obviously, it's good, we learn from our mistakes, stuff like that. But the one thing that's important at the gym is we learn about like the technique and stuff. We learn about what to eat because we don't want people to like, take forever with their progress.
Mhm.
But that's another thing I would say is like to those people that are working out, don't expect fast automatic process. Like just it's sort of unrealistic, like unless you're juicing it up. But now, however, if you're just just putting the time and work in, you're going to the gym early, you're going, to gym late at night after work, like, and you're just putting the time in, progress is gonna come in. Like put yourself like give yourself like some self-appraisal. Like, hey, I didn't hit the gym 5 times a week, but this week I did. Because last week I only hit the gym like two, 3 times, Like
Mhm.
little stuff like that, it'll keep you more motivated. It'll keep you more locked in on your goal, on your target. And that's the important thing when it comes to the gym with the gym community, making sure everyone feels welcome, making sure
Mhm.
we're all locked in our own little goals. How you said we're all focused. You and I, where you're at, where I'm at, we're already focused on what we're doing. So we're not going to nitpick. I'm not going to look to my left, like, oh, what is this guy doing? That's the important thing. So I'm really glad you brought that up. Now, final question before we wrap up today's episode. Kind of a funny one. Do you have a gym pet peeve whenever you're at a public gym? Like, so for example, when someone lifts heavy and they scream so over exaggerated, like, do you have a little gym pet peeve whenever you go to the gym? What is it?
I do. This actually angers me quite a bit, and not just for myself, but for others that are in the gym. It's when someone is using a machine but keeps all of their belongings on another machine next to it that they're not actually using. That's my biggest gym pet peeve. So all of a sudden, like for someone like me, I'll go up to you and say, "Hey, are you using this?" And you'll have to move your things.
Yeah, how many
But
reps
for
you got?
some,
Yeah,
well, no, not just that. Like if you're using machine A over here, but you keep all of your belongings on machine B,
I
I'll
got you.
go
Yeah,
over to machine B and be like, hey, are you using this? Because I know you're not using it, and you'll have to move all your stuff. But someone that's a little bit more shy, someone might not be willing to go up and ask them if someone's using that. And so it irritates me when you do something like that. Like what, you don't want your phone and your water on the ground? Like you have to put it on a machine? Like that's my biggest gym pet peeve that I wish would go away.
I agree. That does bother me too because I've seen that before. And and that's another thing. Don't be afraid to go up to someone in the gym. Like seriously, like just be like, hey, like are using this machine. I see that your belongings are here, like how you said. And there are people that are shy, but to the people that are shy, seriously, don't be shy. Like just go up to
Mhm.
that person. Maybe they might be a little bit angry or something, but just go up to them, ask a friendly question, come with a friendly tone, and that's the most important thing. Don't approach them in a attitude type tone because then it can get ugly. It could get ugly.
Mhm.
But just make sure you come with some kind of like, hey, Mister, like using this machine. I see your belongings are here, but I didn't see you using it. So just want to make sure, like, are you going to use it? Because maybe they'll have it there just because, they're going to use that machine next, or maybe they're just putting it there just to have it there. And how you said, like, just put it on the ground. Like for me, like I'll have like a little duffel bag with me because for me, I'm not the biggest locker room guy. The only time
Mhm.
I'll use the lockers if I'm going somewhere afterwards. So if I'm gonna change, if I'm gonna, let's say maybe use the showers or hit the sauna room, then yeah, I'll have like belongings in the locker room ready to like change. But if I'm there in the gym to be in and out, go back home and do whatever else, I'm gonna just bring my belongings around with me, put my phone and wallet in the duffel bag, just put it on the ground, call it a day. Like don't be a dick and just fucking put it on
Yeah.
like the next machine over. But Sean, seriously, this was an amazing episode. Which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, link in the description to his content will be in the description below. Please check out his Instagram. Please check out his content. A very, very informative person when it comes, you know, to transforming your body, fat loss diets, giving his perspective on foods. Sean, this was a great episode. Do you have any last comments before we wrap up today's episode?
Great. First off, just thank you for having me, of course. And then I think the biggest piece of advice, I always just try to give some type of actionable step. I think that's the most important thing and how someone can integrate this. So no matter what you've taken from this, whether you agree or disagree, if you can go and assess where you are and then look at where you want to go, actually write out where you are and then actually write out where you want to go. And all of the action steps that you need to take will become much easier when you can see this is where I'm at, this is where I want to go. Now the action steps will become much easier. So just go and do those two things. And I think that will give people a lot of clarity that they may be looking for, whether it's in the gym, out of the gym, in their personal life, or XYZ.
Love that advice. And also, guys, like early in the episode, what he mentioned is write down what food you're eating during the day. Nothing wrong with calorie counting, but that's what I might start doing because I haven't done that before. I usually calorie
Mhm.
count, but I think that's also just nice. Like having like a little journal doesn't have to be a big fucking composition notebook, but like a little journal, like, hey, like, oh, this is what I ate. Ate in the morning, like two scrambled eggs. I had, some turkey bacon on the side. Um, at noon, I had, half a bag of like Ruffles or whatever it is.
Mhm.
So great advice. Love the discussion today, and hopefully in the future we could have a bigger discussion of more people in the meeting to discuss more about the gym life and fitness because there's definitely a lot more out there, like very little stuff we could tackle. But nevertheless, this was an amazing discussion, and I can't wait for everyone to take this advice hopefully and just get into the gym and be locked in. So, Sean, thank you. Have a wonderful day, man. And I'll see you soon, my friend.
Beautiful. Thank you, brother.
Of course. Yes, sir.